Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now obviously there is a fight night going on this weekend and Eddie Hearn has been asked many questions usually about Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Andy Ruiz and of course Deontay Wilder. Now Wilder has been talking about fights with AJ, with Andy Ruiz before, not recently, but he did speak about fighting at Dillian Whyte, although that has fallen at the wayside. It's more AJ and Andy Ruiz at the moment. But Anthony Joshua at the moment is obviously focusing on Undisputed, whereas Wilder has to go through a rebuilding stage, so he's not at the Anthony Joshua level just yet. This is what Eddie Hearn had to say. Deontay Wilder does not beat Anthony Joshua and he does not beat Andy Ruiz either, that's for sure. So he has to be very careful of those fights. I don't think there's many heavyweights that'll beat Ruiz. I think he'd give Wilder fits. So there we go, that is his assessment on Wilder's chances in a Andy Ruiz fight or an Anthony Joshua fight. Of course, he went on to speak about the fact that they've offered Wilder the fight. They've even offered Dillian Whyte to Deontay Wilder. I believe at one point as well, they actually offered Derek Chisora to Deontay Wilder, but those are fights that he wasn't interested in for whatever reason. Now, of course, he's in a different situation. He doesn't have a world title, so he cannot dictate who he gets to fight. Well, he can, but that just means that he's not going to get anywhere towards those guys again. The difference is this time for Deontay Wilder is that there are other fighters who are in his position, in and around him, that he needs to beat to get to that level, like an Andy Ruiz, like a Joseph Parker, even fighters like Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte. We do need to talk about that as well, because that one is going to be postponed, we believe, because obviously with the lockdown, they have to try and get Dillian Whyte back into the UK because of his training camp in Portugal, so that he can fight. There were some complications with regards to that, so hopefully that can be resolved. But Eddie Hearn spoke of moving the fight from March 6th to March 27th, and would that not mess up Dillian Whyte and Alexander Povetkin's training camp? Because they do train as pro athletes, of course, so they are training to peak at a certain moment. So they're training to peak on March 6th and it suddenly moved to March 27th. I guess it's just crazy times and that's what they have to deal with. Hopefully though, the fight should still be going ahead on March 6th, it's just whether they can get Dillian Whyte back in the country due to restrictions and obviously flying and driving, or I think he drives over there, so hopefully they are able to get him back in for fight night. One thing that I do have my eye on is the fact that the fight is just 2 weeks away and he's still not back in the UK, so is he going to come back fight week or on the Saturday, the Friday before fight week? I believe that's quite risky considering he does have to drive all the way from Portugal, because I believe that he takes his dogs with him, which means he cannot fly with them. So if he's driving to Portugal then has to drive back, that's a long journey when he's just a week out from the fight. I mean, I know it's not like going from a different time zone like going over to America, but still, it is a different environment as well with regards to the cold and things like that. Those are things that need to be factored in, given the importance of this rematch for Dillian Whyte. Hopefully though, he does get back in the country and hopefully he has enough time to acclimatise. It's not going to be a long time, but still, I just don't like the idea of a long journey for Dillian Whyte, only a week before this fight happens. But again, hopefully things work out for the best. Now, with regards to Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua, those are fights that can be made for Wilder, but he needs that warm-up fight. Apparently he demanded something in the region of 10 million to fight Charles Martin. And that again, it depends on who's going to buy it. Is anyone going to buy Deontay Wilder versus Charles Martin on a pay-per-view? Probably not, they won't make enough money. So it wouldn't be a pay-per-view in America and it definitely wouldn't be a pay-per-view in the UK. So that could be a risky game, fighting Charles Martin, demanding that kind of money when they cannot guarantee those kind of pay-per-views. So I don't see him getting 10 million for that fight. And if I'm real, I'm not sure I see this fight even happening if Deontay Wilder is pricing himself out. The problem is he earned a lot of money in the Tyson Fury fight, so then what is he going to do? Is he going to take less money and start building his way back up when he's used to earning those kind of figures? That is always the problem. That is the problem with Keith Thurman in the welterweight division. The money he earned from the Manny Pacquiao fight was all the way up here, and someone's offering him a lowball offer to go and fight someone else because they can't pay him that kind of money because it's not a big fight. He cannot get a big fight because he's coming off of a loss against Manny Pacquiao. It's a vicious circle. And Deontay Wilder needs to worry that he might fall under the same category because he wants a certain amount of money, but they're not willing to pay him that because he's not really worth it with regards to pay-per-views. and how many people will view the fight. So therefore, there is again this vicious circle, and it's not financially viable to pay him more than he's worth, because then is there a big fight? It would be okay if he would fight Charles Martin, then say Andy Ruiz, but he would need to agree to fight Andy Ruiz after, so they could make a big pay-per-view event, meaning they could recoup some of the money they would lose in the Charles Martin versus Wilder fight. But they need those guarantees. It needs to be financially viable in the long run for them to consider doing that. If it's just a Wilder versus Martin, and he gets 10 million for that, then moves on, and doesn't fight Ruiz or Dillian Whyte or someone like that and doesn't move on, then it's a problem for PBC, it's a problem for those behind him, his broadcasters as well. So Wilder needs to take the plunge and say, nope, I'll take less money to take this fight, then he can start rebuilding. Otherwise, he could end up just like Keith Thurman, who hasn't fought since 2019, June or July in 2019. So nearly 2 years out of the ring. He's 32 years old. That's the prime of his career he is giving to inactivity. Wilder is, around his prime. Heavyweights do peak a lot later. He's 35 or 36, which is not old. So he still has plenty of time, but he does need to seize the opportunity if he still wants to be a big player in the heavyweight division, because it's moving on without him. So at some point he does need to take the plunge and just decide that he's going to have a fight, and not necessarily take what he's given, but take a reasonable amount of money, not go asking for 10 million or more than he is worth, because he does know. He's not stupid, I don't think anyway. So he should know his worth, he should know what kind of money he can expect from that kind of fight, because he's been in many fights like that. So if he takes less money, then gets back in the ring, gets back busy again, then he can take a big fight and get back to those big paydays. It's not all about money, although it seems to be currently. Keith Thurman again, inactive because of the money not being there for the bigger fights, and there is a worry that Deontay Wilder suffers the same fate. He's already been out of the ring for a year. What happens if we go another year and he still hasn't had a fight? It's going to be very hard for him to then come back and catch up to the other guys who are staying active, like AJ, like Tyson Fury, like hopefully Andy Ruiz, who is hoping to get back in the ring, because let's remember he's been out of the ring for more than a year as well. So these guys need to remain active if they want to be a major player in the heavyweight division. Andy Ruiz does look in great shape. He's training and he's getting ready, and he will be fighting Areola hopefully very soon, meaning he will be getting back to winning ways, because I do believe he will win that fight. But if Ruiz is getting active and that is a fight that Wilder wants, then he needs to get his keep busy fight going, and then he can fight Ruiz later in the year, or possibly the winner of Povetkin versus Dillian Whyte. See the possibilities there, but there is this one fight that is preventing Deontay Wilder getting it to those guys, because it's going to be a big struggle to get Deontay Wilder to fight Dillian Whyte to fight Andy Ruiz anyway, but he's not going to do it coming off of a loss to Tyson Fury. He's going to say, no, I want to keep busy fight or a warm-up fight before I get to that point, so I'm not fighting them straight away after coming off of a loss. He's not going to do it. So where is the middle ground? Where does he decide that he's going to take a little bit less money just to get back in the ring? Then he can go and get the big money fighting those fighters. Again, he doesn't want to become a part of that vicious circle where he doesn't have a fight because he's demanding too much money, but they can't pay him it because he's not worth that kind of pay package. So guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? There could be a possibility of Wilder versus Ruiz. Unlikely. Wilder versus Dillian Whyte. Possible, but still unlikely at the moment, considering Wilder isn't getting back in the ring. So guys, anyway, drop your thoughts on this in the comments below. Leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.